Hello, my name is Gina, and I am doing my very best to pretend like I didn't just film 6 videos in one day. Today, we are going to be talking about one brush from one brand called Rephr. Don't know if you've heard of Rephr before, but if not, I guess you don't watch much YouTube because this brand has been everywhere. And before I get into talking about this brush, I just want to talk a little bit about the brand and my inclinations or not towards them. So Rephr as a company, at least how it's kind of been pitched in like influencer reviews and pitched on their website, they are a group of engineers who are trying to develop a set of makeup brushes by soliciting user feedback. And the way that this worked is that I want to say at least as much as a year ago, they had a bunch of prototype brushes that people were sent. They were either sent them or they requested them, and they got the brush for free, and they tested out the brush and submitted user feedback to the designers, the engineers. Since then, Rephr has compiled all that feedback, made adjustments, got more, made adjustments, or at least I presume so, because they are going to be coming out with their first line of brushes in December. They have 2 sub collections, and I will talk a little bit about them in a few minutes because it has partially to do with like my maybe nitpicks of everything. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about like why I'm so excited about this brand. So when I heard what Rephr was doing, I was super excited. I mentioned this in a Get Ready With Me a few months ago. I'm a UX designer. So I primarily work digitally at the moment. My last job was making websites, but user experience, which is what UX stands for, is a broad design field that has a lot of different tenets in it depending on where you work. But the number one thing that most UXers, if not all UXers, stand by is user testing. And so this concept of Rephr brushes as a bunch of people who are engineers who don't do makeup, who've never done makeup, making brushes based on user feedback is like super, super close to my heart. I am so on board with this, The brand also has a couple of marketing claims that they've made along the way that I don't see anymore, but have very much influenced my concept of the brand. And that is that the brushes that you get are supposed to be multi-purpose. So this guy is supposed to be used for foundation, blush, concealer, bronzer, like anything that you might be able to use a brush of this size and shape for. And the brushes are designed so that they're not one-trick ponies. And that's the idea. And in their Kickstarter, I believe they did a lot of marketing around like the only brushes you will ever need. So I was pretty bummed to hear that I missed the prototyping phase, that I didn't get to participate in something like that. I found out about Rephr when they were doing their Kickstarter, and unfortunately I wasn't really able to participate in that either because I just didn't have the funds at the time. But when I went back to look at the Kickstarter and after it had closed, they had an email sign up to, in case they opened it again, in case they opened pre-order again. And I signed up, and a couple months ago, I got an email that said, hey, you have the chance to pre-order again, and oh, by the way, we have new prototypes. We have more prototypes. And I was like, fuck yes. So I went to their prototype store. I think it's now called the concept store. And I picked up this brush here for $45. And the way that it works is that when you participate in the prototype program, at least right now, the way that it works is that you purchase the brush and they give you store credit for the same amount of money. So I bought this brush for $45 and I got a $45 store coupon. And so I got the brush for free, but not really. They do a good job of saying like it's basically free, but it's not basically free because there isn't anything else that's exactly $45. You know, it's like, meh, I see. I still think it's a good idea. I think it's a great way to get user feedback, but I'm just kind of like, oh, it's not free. But I got this brush and it was delivered to me, I want to say like inside a week, definitely less than 2 weeks. It got all the way to me and I was super excited about it. The brush is part of the Bespoke Collection, which is not bespoke, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But all of the brushes, as far as I know, have a black handle, and I believe the ones in the Bespoke Collection have a silver ferrule. The ones in the Core Collection just kind of have a pinched end of the black barrel. So this little brush is the P11A, that's its prototype name, and it is a flat domed, I don't think it's technically a kabuki brush, but it's a flat domed buffing brush. And when I signed up for this, they said that they wanted feedback specifically to know if they should make a smaller version of this brush. I've had this for almost a month now, and I have mixed feelings about it. And so let me tell you a little bit about my experience. My first impression of this was that I was very surprised by how fast it worked given how small it is. It's a very small brush. It takes up, like, it's not bigger than my nose. But it works really fast and I was very impressed by that. After that, everything becomes a little bit more mixed. So the Rephr brushes are natural hair. These are goat hair. And they're supposed to be incredibly soft. That's the thing I heard in all of the reviews, is that it was so soft, But that wasn't my experience. Don't get me wrong, this is not a scratchy brush by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not like particularly soft. Like I put it in this area of my face, and this is where like my contact dermatitis is still kind of healing, and it does not feel good. Like it itches. And I used it today to put on my foundation, and so far it seems to be fine. But the last time I used this brush to put on my foundation, I had another contact dermatitis breakout. Now, I am not at all saying that this brush is at fault for that. That's not what I'm saying. But it does make me very hesitant to use it. I also can't use it when I do have that contact dermatitis because it's just not soft enough. And in some ways I'm very confused to hear people talk about how soft this is, because I've used, like I had the Zoeva flat buffer brush and I used the Morphe domed kabuki brush, and both of those are softer than this. For $45, I expect it to be soft, right? Like I expect it to be really, really soft, and it just isn't. It's average, maybe slightly less than average softness. And I mean, I'm disappointed in that. I really am, especially because it may or may not be irritating my face. The other thing that I want to say about this is that I'm somewhat glad that Rephr has stepped away a little bit from the multi-purpose angle, because if you spend any time in makeup, you know that like even if you can use this for foundation, blush, bronzer, contour, highlight, etc., you're not going to use this for that all in one go or an all-in-one look. Especially, so if you're a makeup artist, like if you do makeup on other people, you might be able to use this for different things between clients because you're going to clean your brushes every time. But if you're just a regular everyday makeup user, you're probably not cleaning your brushes every time. And this is the big drawback of a brush like this, is that it's really expensive. And even though it can do a lot of different things, it will functionally only end up doing one thing. or at least one thing per deep cleaning. And that's the other thing. I spot clean my brushes every day. Like whenever I'm done using them, I get my Bodyography brush cleaner, I spray them down, rub them with a towel, and put them away. This did not like that. I'm somewhat grateful to see that the fraying around the edges has kind of calmed down a bit, but if you can see, I mean, this is a natural hair brush, so there's going to be some variation. It's not going to be quite as robust as some synthetic ones, but this fraying around the edge I found got worse and worse when I sprayed it down and buffed it into the towel. But more than that, because these are natural hairs, they have pores, they have holes in them, and those holes absorb product, which means that in order to get this brush clean enough so that I feel confident going in with blush or bronzer or contour or moving between one of those color products, I have to deep clean it. I have to go and get a brush cleaner and get it wet and suds it up and rinse it and let it dry. And I just don't want to do that. I find that so impractical. And because Rephr's brushes are all natural hair, that's going to be true across the board. Maybe your eyeshadow brushes don't need that as much because you use powder with them, but for any kind of cream product, this isn't truly multi-purpose in the sense that they were marketing it as, which is these are the only brushes you will ever need. Like that's just not how it works. So full disclosure, I asked for Rephr brushes for the holidays. I wanted to use the $45 off coupon. The pre-order store has a bunch of things at 40% off, which is really awesome because they're expensive brushes. And so I asked for either the face set or I think the whole thing or something else. I asked for a bunch of brushes for the holidays. I don't know what I'm getting. I think these are worth having, but you kind of have to moderate your expectations a little bit. This is a $45 brush. Had I known exactly what this was before I bought it, I would not have paid $45 for it. This brush from Sephora, this is a blush brush. This is soft. This is softer than this. And actually, I don't know how much. This might be a $40 brush. The Sephora Pro brushes are really expensive, but this is worth that much money to me. This is not. Again, I did ask for Rephr brushes for the holidays, and I'm hoping that I will enjoy those brushes. But I'm also getting them at a really, really hefty discount. And I think that at that price, they'd probably be fine. They'd probably be worth it to me. But I cannot say that I personally would be excited to have these if I had to pay full price for them. And it's kind of unfortunate. I know that there are a lot of reviews going around right now about Rephr brushes and how amazing they are. I've seen at least a dozen at this point, and they're all like glowing. They're all just super enthusiastic and happy. Mine is kind of like, I have Morphe brushes that are better than this. I have Sigma brushes that are better than this. I certainly have Sephora Pro brushes that are better than this. And I'm not trying to necessarily dissuade anybody because again, I asked for them for the holidays, but I would strongly recommend trying to see if you can get a hold of these in person before you shell out the money for them, because I don't want you to pay $45 for a brush that you don't like. I referenced a couple of times a couple of quibbles that I had with the design of the brushes, and I just want to touch on that real fast before I close. The way that Rephr has their brushes sorted is confusing and not user-friendly and quite frankly really annoying. So I mentioned before that they have the Core Collection and the Bespoke Collection. I'm gonna need to sit up here for a second. So let me touch on the Bespoke Collection for a second. I believe when the Kickstarter was going, there were customization options. I think that you could have like all black or you could have the silver ferrule. I think you might have been able to have your name on them. I don't remember precisely. But I do think that there were some customization options, and it makes sense for it to be called a bespoke collection. That said, what's available right now is that there are some brushes that look like this, and they're called bespoke. And I don't even have a brush that looks like this because I actually think they're really ugly. The core collection is a set of entirely black brushes. Like the whole thing is black, and the barrel is pinched here instead of, as far as I can tell, instead of having a ferrule. I have a lot of issues with that. I have like layers upon layers of issues with that. First of all, don't call something a bespoke collection anymore if it's not actually customizable. That's what bespoke means. And when you call something a bespoke collection, at least to me, I'm just like, okay, what's custom made, right? Like what's custom tailored? What is made for me? Second of all, the bespoke collection costs more, but what's in it is a completely different set of brushes from the core collection. So if you wanted a brush in a particular shape, you have to buy it from either the core collection or the bespoke collection. It's not like they're the same set of brushes and one has a cheaper handle. No, they're just completely different sets. And that drives me insane. To be completely honest, it drives me insane. Why did you make... So I can understand why you would have the core collection as its own thing. It's a cheaper set of brushes. You have a lot of like really basic shapes. But why wouldn't you have the same brush shapes, the same types of brushes, also in the bespoke collection? Why? If there's a brush that I really want, like from the core collection, I have to buy it in a fucking ugly black ferrule or black body that's pinched. Like, I don't want that. And I'm also just like, I spilled my Coke. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I was gesticulating so wildly, I like knocked over my Coke, and apparently this is making me much angrier than I thought. Angry is a strong word, but in the last 2 minutes when I was cleaning up that small mess, I was thinking like, let me take a step back here and explain why this bugs me. It's not just because of my aesthetics, but I remember when I looked at the Kickstarter and I wanted to buy some. I wanted to buy a collection, but like as a user, it was really confusing. Like, why is this called core? Why is this called bespoke? If I want like black handles with silver ferrules, which really isn't that special in terms of a handle, do I have to buy the bespoke? If I want this brush type, why do I have to buy it from the core collection? Why are there different handles altogether for different brush types? Like it was so confusing, and it made making a decision much more difficult. And I think that's part of the reason why I ended up not pulling the plug, is because in order to get like what I wanted, like what specifically I wanted, I would have had to order every single brush that they owned. And that's not a position that you want to put your customer in. That's not a position that you want to put your user in. When I submitted my feedback form for the brushes, I gave them a lot of, quite frankly, unsolicited feedback on their website, because it just is so not conducive to a good customer experience. And that is what I have found. And to me, looking at it from a user's perspective, I think of it as like, well, the way that they designed this is really weird. Why would I want this collection? But there's a way to present the core and bespoke collections in a way that is clear, that doesn't leave confusion, that doesn't leave someone wondering like, well, why would I want this? And I think that I would really strongly encourage the Rephr team to do user testing on their website and like really like very dedicatedly do that, because some of the things that I suggested to them, they had already implemented actually by the time that I got to submit my review, but there's a lot more that can be done. And there's a lot more that should be done, because if you are asking someone to spend $45 on this, they need to know what they're getting, and they need to know why they should choose this over a different brush in the other collection. They need to know why they need to pick the Bespoke over the Core or the Core over the Bespoke. And they need to understand why, maybe not why you separated the brushes the way that you did, the brush types the way that you did, but certainly why you varied so many variables between the two collections. And not in the sense of like a rationalization, like they need to understand you, but they need to know as much as they can before they make a decision, before they make a purchase decision. And there is so much about how these collections are parsed out. There is so much about these collections that is completely opaque that it makes it really difficult to make a purchasing decision. And for a luxury brush and a luxury brush brand, that experience needs to be as seamless as humanly possible, because you're already asking people to fork over a lot of money, and you need to make it easy for them to fork over a lot of money. And not in a manipulation kind of sense, but it needs to be clear. And right now it really isn't. And like when I sent my spouse, Imani, when I sent them the page to buy from, I had to write like 300 words on what the different collections were and how they worked so that they knew what they were buying me, which is insane. Like, that's crazy. And I really, again, I want to wrap this up so I don't rant too much, but I would really encourage the Rephr team to, if they don't want to expand, say, the Bespoke collection to include the Core collection brush shapes, which I do think you should do, but if you're not willing to do that, then at least make it clear to the customer why they are separated and why they should choose one over the other. So, in conclusion, I find Rephr at this juncture to be a wonderful idea that speaks to my heart in a lot of really, really big ways. But at least from my current experience with the one brush that I have, it is very much middling in terms of its performance for me, to be completely honest. And the purchasing experience is also very middling. And I am not saying that you shouldn't buy them. That's not at all what I'm saying. It's a good brush. It's a good brush. The problem is not that it's not a good brush, it's that it costs $45 and I can get just as good of a brush for half that. Rephr needs to do a better job of selling people on why they should be spending this much money on a brush like this. And for Rephr too, I think having some kind of physical presence somewhere would also be super helpful. All of that said, do I think you should buy a Rephr brush? Probably. If there's a brush shape that you like in particular, I think that it's worth a shot. In particular, if you can get a prototype brush that you want to try. User feedback is always good, and the coupon is nice. But I do think that Rephr as a new brand has some work to do, and that's okay. That is all I have to say on this. I'm sorry it's kind of a bummer ranty video, but they asked for user feedback, and that's my user feedback. If you liked this video, please do give me a thumbs up. It helps me out a lot. And please do leave a comment down below, especially if you have experience with Rephr brushes and if it's different than mine. I do, admittedly, at the moment in particular, have a very sensitive face, so keep that in mind as well. If you like me and my flowing red hair, please do subscribe to the channel. My uploads are a little inconsistent at the moment, but I can at least guarantee one video a week. You can find me on the internet at Faces by Gina. I have an Instagram and a Facebook where I upload every single day. And if you're wanting more video content, just stay tuned to the end cards and I will be popping up videos that I've done related to this one. I hope that you're having a great day no matter where you are. Please do think deeply, critically engage the world around you as you are being good to yourself and good to other people as well. I'll see you out there on the internet. Bye!